So good morning to everybody. Good afternoon, actually, to everybody, and welcome to this new virtual InfoPoint conference. My name is Linda. I work in the communication unit of DigiDevco, and I'm very happy to introduce you to today's event about improving synergy between social protection and public financial management. We're very honored to have with us today Henriette Geiger, Director of the European Commission DevCo B, People and Peace. Then we will have Valerie Schmidt, Deputy Director of ILO Social Protection Department. We will have the presence of some partner countries. From Ecuador, we will have the Honorable Andres Ik Perez, Minister of Labor. From Nepal, we will have Dr. Ram Kumar Puhal, Member of the Planning Commission. And for Paraguay, we'll have Mrs. Teodora Recalde Despinti, Director General of Budget Ministry of Finance. We will also have the presence of some partners from implementing partners, Ms. Shahra Razavi, Director of the ILO Social Protection Department, Ms. Natalia Winder-Rossi from the Associate Director of the Chief of Social Policy from UNICEF, Mr. Bart Verstraeten, Political Secretary of WSM and GCSPF member. As well, we will also have two colleagues from DevCo, Jürgen Hochmann from DevCo B in charge of social protection team, as well as Dorte Bosse from DevCo B3 as well in charge of the social protection team. Before starting the event, I would like to remind you of very few and simple rules that will help us to run smoothly this event. First of all, the meeting is being recorded and the video will be published on the European Commission platform in the upcoming days. If we do not wish to appear, we invite you to switch off the video. And also for a better quality, we do also recommend you to both be muted and to switch off the video for the entire duration of the presentations of the conference. We are very numerous in this meeting, and by also muting your microphone will allow us to hear the speakers with the best sound quality. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the conference. We will have around 20-30 minutes for the Q&A. And at that moment, we will give to each of you the floor to directly pose the question to our speakers. I would like also to remind you that there is a planet bottom in the center of the screen. This button is for the interpretation. If you click on top of it, you will find an off, which means that you will be able to listen to the original language of each speaker. Otherwise, you can also have the selection of English, French, and Spanish. So yes, you are more than welcome to select the best language for you. I would like also to remind you that we always organize, we weekly organize conferences and events. You can for sure subscribe to our mailing list by sending an email to europe-infopoint-conferences at ec.europe@eu. I would really like now to start the conference and give the floor to Mrs. Henriette Geiger. Sir, I invite you to mute your microphone because we do hear you. Henriette, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Let me see whether you can see me. Can you see me?
Yes, I just.
No, you cannot.
No, I think now I can see you.
Now you can see me.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm very happy to have you all with us today to launch officially the thematic flagship program, Improving Synergies Between Public Finance Management and Social Protection. This program aims at enhancing the capacity of our partner countries to handle in an effective and aligned manner both these two policies, with the aim to strengthen their resilience as well as their capacity to respond to crisis. These are properties most needed as shown by the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. And if somebody would have questioned in the past the value of social protection programs, COVID-19 taught us all a lesson on this, because we have seen that the countries with functioning social protection systems fare much better in response to the crisis. But we'll come to that later on. So let me welcome wholeheartedly ILO, UNICEF, and the Global Coalition for Social Protection Floors as our implementing partners in this program, and the representatives from Ecuador, Nepal, and Paraguay as countries we closely work with as 3 out of the 18 countries of this program. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this action supports governments' efforts to improve life course risk protection measures, including their financing basis and redistributive effects. In this regard, public finance management is a key of a social protection policy. Let me underline that EU budget support operations supporting social protection systems are our preferred aid modality. Why? Because budget support operations are fully aligned with national policies and systems. That makes budget support an effective catalyst for broader reform processes, including the fight against inequalities and the building and strengthening of inclusive social protection systems. This thematic program is closely coordinating, of course, with our ongoing EU bilateral operations and budget support operations. Now, the EU budget support designed to improve social protection performance of a partner country is delivered by addressing the state budget and the social protection budget, as well as promoting a reliable planning and execution of the social protection budget. It's promoting also a more balanced share of the social protection budget in the overall budget of a state. Now, by combining thematic support on social protection with public finance management and improving public finance management, our thematic program acts in the partner countries as accelerator to achieving universal social protection in terms of coverage and adequacy of benefits. And like that, we are increasing the long-term resilience of beneficiaries and combating poverty and inequality. In this vein, I would like to stress that it's very important for us that we're partnering with the Global Coalition of Social Protection Floors. This is key to involve civil society actors to put pressure on governments and to monitor success of the implementation. Without the will of the countries themselves, there's nothing we can do. Our funds can only stimulate a change process in a country, but the real work has to be done on the ground. So what have we achieved so far? Because the program had already had a 6-month inception period, which started in October 2019 until March 2020. So we already started action on the ground in the field in spring 2020 with 2 main components. One, the implementation in 8 priority countries. So that is Paraguay, Nepal, Cambodia, Angola, Burkina Faso, Senegal, Ethiopia, and Uganda. So there, the focus was different in each country depending on the needs and priorities. For example, in one we focused on gender or disability, the informal economy, budget planning and execution. We will see more of that in the video, I believe. And second, the so-called horizontal component with research to measure the impact of changes in social protection expenditure on domestic demand and growth. Generating new evidence is essential to promote the spread of social protection schemes. What is better than hard evidence? That we can demonstrate the concrete impact is the best argument for the spread of social protection schemes. So, how has COVID-19 impacted on our program? COVID-19 broke out, unfortunately, in parallel with the start of this new thematic program and has put additional challenges on the social protection systems that we wanted to support and that even before were faced with highly fragmented actions, insufficient and scattered funding. COVID-19 imposed also a partial reformulation of our program, having in mind that all country-specific activities had been already identified and agreed upon at local level with sometimes complex consultation processes, and that just right before the outbreak of the pandemic. So the program teams impressively adapted to the approach in accordance with the partner countries' expressed immediate needs and supported them in shifting their national priorities towards urgent sanitary and socio-economic responses to the crisis. In this manner, our program was also among the first DEFCO actions that could be deployed in the context of the joint European response in support to partner countries against COVID-19. That was prominently mentioned in our EU communication of 6th of April. The program was also able to rapidly provide advice to partner countries on how to continue, but to also efficiently redirect social protection measures to help their population cope with the social and economic crisis. 10 additional countries selected on the basis of a call for proposals were launched in May. And they received this form of support. So that's Bangladesh, Cabo Verde, Cote d'Ivoire, Ecuador, Malawi, Myanmar, Nigeria, Peru, Sri Lanka, and Togo. Impressive, isn't it? So overall, you may know that our response to the COVID-19 pandemic was swift, but we had to act because it was an existential threat to many of our partner countries and actually big threat to the European countries as well. But more than anything, it was worrying for our partner countries with fragile healthcare systems and economies. And the economic and social effect of the crisis is maybe even worse than the health effect, because we're looking at the most devastating regression in terms of SDG progress. I was yesterday on a panel and I was looking at the increase of poverty and the increase of malnutrition in children. And I don't recall the figures, which were absolutely staggering, but on malnutrition, I retained that in the last month, since March, we have made a step back equivalent, wiping out 10 years of progress on malnutrition in children. I mean, it's to cry over. It's really to cry over, because we have worked so hard on the SDGs, and this is only one sector, malnutrition, but talking about education, there has never been a time in history where more children were out of school than now. Not even during the 2 world wars were there more children out of school than today. So this is what we're looking at. This is the challenge we're facing. And as I said, social protection schemes are key to address this, because In many of our partner countries, we have a lot of people, sometimes up to 80% of the population working in the informal sector without any coverage whatsoever in terms of social protection. What does that mean? The head of the family has to make a very simple decision. Either I go out to work and face the threat of becoming contaminated, or my children will die of hunger. So, of course, the choice is clear. I'd rather work today and survive another day and take the risk. So that is what is happening in countries where there's no social protection, or where a very large portion of the population is not covered. So we have seen that the pandemic is really bringing to the fore, revealing the structural weaknesses in our partner countries of the social protection systems. And it's a real stress test as to how much elasticity and resilience they have, mercilessly exposing existing structural flaws, also inside the EU. Now, we have worked as a Team Europe. The EU institutions and the member states got together to pool our response, not only in terms of resources, but also in terms of our policy and how we respond to the global challenge with other multilateral actors. So we mobilized 39 billion euros for emergency and longer term response. And so far we have allocated more than 600 million euros to support social protection measures. Since the very beginning of the crisis, we worked with the UN system, including ILO, UNICEF, WHO, IFIs, regional banks, but also with the G20 and the G7. And I would only like to stress that the EU was a very strong advocate for debt relief. Why? Because the countries need fiscal space above all. Without fiscal space, there cannot be any social protection measure. So we tried to do our best to help to get a global debt relief scheme going. We also want to be strong advocates and supporters of the building back better, because we have, with all the key challenges we face, we have an opportunity to not just recreate what we had before, but to do it in a better way, to be more resilient. And social protection is a key component in this. Brings me to my last point, the next programming phase of the European Commission. You all know maybe that we're at the end of a financial cycle. We're starting a new cycle as of January 2021. The negotiations for the next multi-annual financial framework are still ongoing, but we are already thinking of what can be done with the new funds. So the programming has already started. And first and foremost, we want to work together as a Team Europe with our member states. And we came up with the idea to have Team Europe initiatives. That means that together with member states, we look at the partner countries' needs and then propose some joint response. That will be one of the key components of how we want to do our cooperation in the next 7 years. Now, what we have is that we have a target of 20% to go to social and human development. So human development will get at least 20% of the overall budget. Our commissioner has also promised that she will want to ensure that at least 10% of these 20 will go to education. This will help us on the social protection, programming. We are engaging very closely with our delegations to stimulate their thinking on social protection and our partner countries' thinking on social protection. So if there's any good in this crisis that we're all suffering from, is that it brought out the need for social protection. And I was just yesterday in the high-level strategic dialogue between the EU and UNICEF, and we were highlighting there how much social protection is helping in the crisis, even in a context of displacement, refugee and migration context, even with very fragile and let's say rudimentary social protection schemes, we have made good experience even in the most difficult environments. So the case was made. I think with all the challenges we have, we can work together to make this program a key component to give a real boost to social protection, and count on us to do whatever we can to make it a success. But we are also counting on our implementing partners, and above all, our partner countries. Because what I said before, we cannot do more than stimulate a change. But it is really to you, excellencies, who are participating today, and all the other representatives from partner countries, to make it become a reality, to make sure that there's enough budget allocated to social protection, that there's enough in the state coffers through public financial management, and to give this sustainability over time, because social protection is not a off and on thing. It's a process that has to be built over time. And of course, this is difficult given the short political cycles that we have. That's why it's so important to build broad national coalitions around it, and to have pressure groups who can support the process. So I wish us all a big success with this program. I will follow it closely, and I will make sure that whatever support you need, you will get it. And I'm looking forward to our discussions. Now, if there's a burning question, or I will like to give you the opportunity to ask that. Otherwise, we'll have at the end an extensive question and answer session where you can bring up all the issues, but I will not be able to stay until the end. So if there's anything burning that you have to get rid of, please do it now. Otherwise, you wait and we'll discuss that later on. I think there's nothing burning, so let's move on to the next point. I'm not sure whether we are seeing the video right now, or whether we go directly to the high-level
No,
panel.
indeed, we will show the video, Harriet.
4 billion people,
Thank
more
you.
than half the world population, do not have any social protection. The impact of this coverage gap on people's lives has been dramatically shown by the COVID-19 pandemic. Social protection enables people to manage life cycle risks such as sickness, unemployment, working injury, maternity, childhood, old age, or disability. In developing countries, resources invested in social protection are insufficient to guarantee basic income security and access to essential healthcare for all. With the support of the European Union, a new program jointly implemented by the International Labour Organization, UNICEF, and the Global Coalition for Social Protection Floors supports countries to strengthen their social protection systems and to ensure the necessary financing.
Scaling up of social protection measures is a key emphasis in the COVID-19 pandemic response. The road to recovery is a very long way and challenging.
In Angola, Burkina Faso, and Paraguay, the program supports a national dialogue process to assess the cost and financing options to secure basic social protection for all. In Senegal, a gender-sensitive social protection expenditure review is undertaken. In Cambodia, the project strengthens the financing and delivery of benefits for people with disability.
In Ethiopia, the project supports the development of financing strategy for social protection. It is also instrumental in finding innovative ways for extending social security to informal workers.
In Bangladesh, the program supports a wage subsidy scheme for workers in the garment sector, which was badly hit by the COVID-19 crisis. Program activities build on international standards with the aim of realizing the human right of social security and enhancing gender equality. With the support of the program, governments, workers and employers' organizations, civil society, national partners, and the European delegations are joining forces to make universal social protection a reality, while building back better.
Okay, hello, good afternoon, good morning, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues. I hope you can all hear me. My name is Dörte Bosse, as you can see. I'm handing over now to Valerie Schmidt, who will moderate the first part of the session. Valerie Schmidt is Deputy Director of the Social Protection Department at the ILO. Please, Valerie.
Valerie, can you hear us? I don't hear Valerie at the moment. Maybe there is a technical issue. Let's give her some seconds. If Valerie can't hear us, maybe we can move to the next speaker. So is Valerie?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, Valerie, are you there? Actually, I would like to speak with Valerie Schmidt. If she's not there, then we might go next.
We, the panel, can hear.
Maybe we can move to the next speaker. We can invite to the floor Andres X. Perez, the Minister of Labor from Ecuador. Mr. Perez.
Buenos días.
Welcome, Mr. Perez. Hello.
Thank you very much. I'm not allowed to start my video.
Can I invite you to turn on the video, please?
The host is not allowing me to start the video.
Oh, just a second. We'll work on that in a
Sorry, excuse me to interrupt. Can you hear us or not? Because we are in Geneva, the ILO, and we are supposed to manage this panel.
Yes, now we can hear you. Now we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. So yes, I was just welcoming everybody on this panel that will focus on improving synergies between social protection and public finance management. And it's our pleasure to have on this panel a number of high-level representatives, both from countries and from the development agencies and partners that are participating in this program of the European Commission. So on this panel, let me introduce you first the list of the panelists. We have Honorable Andrés Isch Perez, the Minister of Labor of Ecuador. We have also Dr. Ram Kumar Puyal, the member of the Planning Commission of Nepal. We have Mrs. Teodora Racalde de Spinzi, the Director General of Budget of the Ministry of Finance of Paraguay. We have Mrs. Shara Razavi, the Director of the ILO Social Protection Department based in Geneva. Mrs. Natalia Winter-Rossi, the Associate Director and Chief of Social Policy of UNICEF based in New York. And Mr. Bart Verstraeten, the Political Secretary of WSM, We Social Movements, previously known as World Solidarity, Solidarité Mondiale. And Bart will not only represent WSM, but also speak on behalf of the Global Coalition that is also an implementing partner of this program. So the objectives of this roundtable are obviously to learn more about this EC-DEFCO program on improving synergies between social protection and public finance management, on understanding the relevance and the timeliness of this program, and also to better know the main pillars, the main broad activities of this program. So we will first hear from 3 of the 18 countries that are participating in this program, and then we will hear from 3 development partners involved in the implementation of this program, the ILO, UNICEF, and the Global Coalition. I will be very strict on time, and because we have only 5 minutes per speaker, so we will start with Honorable Andrés Isch Perez, the Minister of Labor of Ecuador, and I have one question for you, Honorable Minister. Ecuador has been severely hit by the COVID-19. In particularly, COVID-19 has shown in Ecuador that workers in the informal economy can be very vulnerable, extremely vulnerable in the absence of social protection. So the crisis revealed the importance of securing social protection for all. Ecuador is one of the 10 countries that is receiving short-term technical assistance from the EC program to support the COVID-19 national response. So, Honorable Minister Isch Perez, Ecuador is one of the few countries in Latin America that has institutionalized unemployment insurance, which covers formal sector workers in the event of job losses. Besides revisions to improve this scheme and to extend its coverage, how can the EC-DEFCO program contribute to promoting the transition of workers and enterprises from the informal to the formal economy? Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much. I will be giving my answer in Spanish. La crisis económica realmente le golpeó muy duro al Ecuador. No fue posible tomar ciertas medidas que tomaron otros países debido, en primer lugar, a que el Ecuador depende en una medida muy importante de los ingresos petroleros y, por lo tanto, la bajada del precio del petróleo nos puso en una situación económica complicada y tampoco el Ecuador tenía suficientes reservas monetarias como para hacer frente a la crisis con medidas anticíclicas. Así es que lo que hicimos fue, a través de distintas piezas de legislación, ampliar en primer lugar el seguro de desempleo. Facilitamos el acceso, por lo tanto, al seguro de desempleo para muchísimos ecuatorianos que habían perdido su trabajo. Propusimos incentivos para llegar a acuerdos entre las partes, trabajadores y empleadores, con la condición de que no existan despidos alrededor de estos acuerdos y regulamos adecuadamente el teletrabajo, protegiendo por lo tanto plazas de empleo y protegiendo a los más débiles. Habíamos llegado en el mes de junio a un punto muy crítico alrededor de los indicadores laborales. Apenas el 16% de los ecuatorianos tenía un trabajo adecuado y se había multiplicado por 4 el desempleo. Estas medidas nos ayudaron a corregir esos indicadores. Hemos bajado en pocos meses, en apenas 4 meses, el desempleo a la mitad y hemos duplicado el empleo adecuado. Sin embargo, seguimos teniendo problemas estructurales muy graves. El primero es la informalidad. Casi la mitad del país está en la informalidad y por lo tanto estas medidas de protección al empleo no les cubren a todos los ecuatorianos y sobre todo no les cubren a los más vulnerables. Y tenemos un problema estructural muy serio alrededor de las diferencias de acceso al mercado de trabajo y de la posibilidad de crecimiento para las mujeres. El 45% de las mujeres no tiene acceso a un trabajo adecuado y los empleos se van desproporcionadamente hacia los hombres. El doble de hombres tiene trabajo formal en relación al de las mujeres. Por lo tanto, esos dos problemas tienen que ser enfrentados de una manera muy firme y muy rápida. Por eso, lo primero que quisiera hacer es agradecer a la Organización Internacional del Trabajo, pues estamos en este momento trabajando en un proyecto de fortalecimiento institucional que lo que busca es ampliar la cobertura de la seguridad social, encontrar aquellos mecanismos que puedan generar un tránsito mucho más rápido desde la informalidad hacia la formalidad y sobre todo proteger a aquellas personas que en este momento no solamente que no cuentan con un empleo adecuado, sino que tienen ingresos mínimos en relación a la mayoría de ecuatorianos. También hemos planteado un proyecto de ley para mejorar el acceso de las mujeres al mercado formal y sobre todo el crecimiento de las mujeres dentro de las estructuras empresariales. Generaremos incentivos tributarios para tener una deducibilidad adicional en los contratos o en los nuevos contratos de trabajo de mujeres. Por lo tanto, mientras más se le pague a una mujer y mientras más mujeres entren a trabajar en una empresa, mayores beneficios tendrán esas empresas. En este proyecto también vamos a equiparar o dividir o la posibilidad de compartir las licencias de maternidad entre ambos padres, pues esto va a ayudar a romper un prejuicio injusto que existe todavía en algunas de nuestras sociedades en las cuales se cree que las mujeres en edad de ser madres son un problema para las empresas y por lo tanto ese prejuicio tiene que ser destruido con políticas de este estilo. Y también queremos mejorar la capacitación de las mujeres y la posibilidad de que las mujeres accedan a puestos de dirección. Lo que estamos haciendo es obligando, en primer lugar, a que los directorios de las empresas y de las grandes corporaciones tengan, vía una acción afirmativa, a mujeres en sus directorios. Estamos convencidos que mientras más mujeres estén en puestos de dirección, mejores decisiones tomarán las empresas y, por lo tanto, cambiaremos esa estructura empresarial que está limitando el acceso de las mujeres al trabajo. También tenemos que avanzar en otro tipo de medidas. Hemos iniciado un proceso de diálogo nacional muy amplio en el cual no solamente los actores tradicionales, gremios de trabajadores y gremios de empleadores se han sentado a la mesa a conversar, sino que también hemos incluido en estas conversaciones a desempleados, a trabajadores informales, a microempresarios y sobre todo a jóvenes y mujeres que nos han ayudado a encontrar distintos consensos que serán puestos a consideración del legislativo para una reforma muchísimo más profunda. Una reforma que genere más oportunidades para la formalización de trabajo, que genere más garantías de derecho y que genere al mismo tiempo oportunidades. Y estas oportunidades no pueden alcanzarse sin un tercer elemento que es clave, y es las herramientas que necesitan los ecuatorianos y los ciudadanos en general para acceder a mejores plazas de trabajo y acceder además a los trabajos que el mundo ahora requerirá. Hemos arrancado un programa muy agresivo de capacitaciones gratuitas. Hemos transformado mucho del pensum que teníamos en capacitaciones para que esté en línea y disponible para todo aquel que quiera acceder a estas nuevas herramientas. Y también hemos pensado en una reforma legal para incentivar la generación de carreras duales, carreras donde se combine una formación académica con una formación práctica que vincule rápidamente a los trabajadores en empleos formales. Por lo tanto, creemos que solamente haciendo estos cambios profundos, solamente logrando un equilibrio adecuado entre derechos y oportunidades de acceso al mercado laboral, tendremos un futuro del trabajo que esté marcado por relaciones mucho más justas. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. Thank you so much for sharing the policy that you are currently implementing of formalization. And we can see that social protection is part of an integrated approach to formalization. So this is very interesting. Thank you so much. So I will now turn to Dr. Ram Kumar Puyal, the member of the Planning Commission of Nepal. Nepal is one of the 8 priority countries that receives the support from the EC-DEFCO program during the next 3 years. And Nepal is currently developing its national social protection framework. So, Dr. Kumar Puyal, what are the main issues that the social protection framework intends to address? And how will you ensure that the budgetary allocations are sufficient to implement this new social protection framework? Over to you. Dr. Ram Kumar, can you the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Participants, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It was a nice question. Actually, we have been implementing more than 80 social protection programs in Nepal, and they are endorsed and implemented different ministries and agencies of the government. So when there were many programs implemented by the government and the ministry, there was a big problem of fragmentation. So we just felt there was an urgent need to make quite a long time. And actually, another problem was frameworks, and we were supposed to divide the 3 different board heading these programs of social protection, which is in our constitutions as well, which we define fundamental rights people in Nepal. And next one is need-based protections, which responds to the implemented, and sometimes based on time and situations and urgency, we implement them. And next, another big bulk of the coverage of social protection is the coverage to the formal and informal sectors workers as well. So there are so sorry. Okay. Okay, no. So just while talking about the financial management, It's a issue. It's a big issue, and it's for all the developing countries. In case of the Nepal, government of Nepal has allocated around 12.5% of the national budget addressing the all schemes of social frameworks, and the provision to construction issues be around 14% at the end of the 15th periodic plan. So this will be totally financed from the government by allocating around 14% of the national budget. Percentage of the total people are under the coverage, and the end of but budget the limitation is limited. So for that we focus more on contribution based solution schemes for which the contributors themselves will contribute the budget. And we also have been thinking about the extending the right-based programs into the need-based. So I think the check and balance made from there as well. And we are encouraging to strengthen the existing programs rather than the introducing small programs. And we also have been making some studies to generate the fund on social protections, and we have been working to generate this simple small type of funds as well. These are the things the government has been doing, and government of Nepal has emphasized more on utilizing the fund for proper benefit of the peoples and for its sustainability.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this explanation, Dr. Ramkumar Puyal, of this very, very interesting developments in Nepal on the National Social Protection Framework to really extend social protection to the informal economy and to also move to also reduce the fragmentation of existing social protection system. Thank you. I will now turn to Mrs. Teodora Recalde de Spinzi, the Director General of Budget of the Ministry of Finance of Paraguay. Paraguay is also part of the 8 priority countries of this EC-DEFCO program, receiving technical support during the next 3 years. Mrs. Teodora Recalde de Spinzi, how will this EC-DEFCO program manage to link to the public finance and to the social protection vision of your country? The floor is yours. Thank you. And you have 5 minutes.
Buenos días, buenas tardes. Para mí es un honor participar de este panel en representación de mi país. Bueno, este programa es muy oportuno, puesto que Paraguay es una economía en la cual persisten desigualdades sociales, económicas y esquemas y servicios de protección social fragmentados. En agosto del 2018, el gobierno lanza el sistema de protección social Vamos, e inició el proceso de formulación, este hito que marcó la decisión política de avanzar en la configuración e implementación de un sistema de protección social para toda la población como prioridad de gobierno. Asimismo, en el 2020 se generalizó en todas las instituciones públicas la implementación de una estrategia de presupuesto por resultados, guiando el diseño y la gestión de los programas hacia resultados concretos y medibles a favor de la población, con el objetivo de contribuir a mejorar la calidad del gasto público, al orientar que los organismos y entidades del Estado hagan uso eficiente de los recursos públicos, priorizando la producción de bienes y servicios que beneficien y lleguen a la ciudadanía. En ese contexto, el programa global une las finanzas públicas con la protección social, contribuyendo directamente al trabajo que vienen realizando de manera conjunta el Ministerio de Hacienda y la Unidad Técnica del Gabinete Social, con el apoyo de la Unión Europea, además de contar con la valiosa experiencia de la OIT y UNICEF, que permitirán potenciar la implementación del sistema de protección social, vamos, y la consolidación del presupuesto por resultados, alineándose con los objetivos que busca este programa, no solo a nivel nacional, sino también a nivel mundial. El sistema de protección social tiene un enorme mecanismo redistributivo y en ese sentido requiere un sistema de gobernanza y administración competente y en particular una adecuada dirección financiera y gestión económica. En realidad, la contribución potencial de la protección social al desarrollo de los individuos y de la sociedad no puede tener lugar si los recursos que la sociedad confía a su sistema de protección social no se administran con el mayor esmero y responsabilidad. Son muchos, en ese sentido, son muchos los modelos de protección social que, aunque bien diseñados, han fracasado por su deficiente gobernanza y administración. Es así que consideramos que el programa global contribuirá a potenciar la vinculación que existe entre ambas organizaciones, el Ministerio de Hacienda y el Gabinete Social, lo cual es clave para el éxito del sistema, pues permitirá el día de mañana poder juzgar si lo que se hizo valió la pena y si llegamos a los resultados. Ser parte de esta iniciativa beneficia al Paraguay, no solo por los conocimientos técnicos a los que se accede, sino también por la experiencia de nuestros pares de los diversos países participantes, tanto en la gestión de las finanzas públicas como en el diseño, implementación y la identificación de recursos para la protección social, generando capacidades para garantizar la apropiación y sostenibilidad del sistema de protección social, que es fundamental, y la gestión bajo un presupuesto por resultado. Estas dos líneas son fundamentales. La implementación por un lado, pero la sostenibilidad del sistema de protección social con un régimen de resultados que llega a la ciudadanía desde el inicio hasta el final de toda la República del
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mrs. Teodora Recalde de Spinzi, for your testimony on your ambition of linking social protection with public finance in Paraguay, and through this results-based budget management that you are explaining, and also this idea also that is a bit different from the previous speakers, that you are expecting a lot of South-South collaboration and exchanges through this project, so that you can also learn from other countries. So I will now turn to the second part of this panel, and where we will hear from the ILO representative, the UNICEF representative, and the representative from the Global Coalition that are all implementing partners of this program. And first, I will turn to Mrs. Shahar Hazafi, the director of the Social Protection Department of the ILO. So listening to the three countries' interventions, this ECDEFCO program is obviously not only a relevant program, but also a very timely program. And what innovations do you see in this program that will bring tangible changes in the years to come and really accelerate the extension of social protection while ensuring the sustainability of these national social protection systems? Shara, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Valerie, and good good day to everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Thank you so much, Valerie, for that question. And let me just say that it is an honor to be sharing this panel with the Honourable Minister and the other two senior colleagues from the participating countries, and also our colleagues from UNICEF and from the Global Coalition. So with that, let me just try and sort of give a few ways in which I think this program is in many ways very innovative. Firstly, I think the fact that the program really tries to bring together the ministries of finance together with the technical ministries that are in charge of social protection programs, really can provide a really good way of having a kind of joined up way that really breaks the silos as far as the government is concerned, to be able to work on social protection policies and their sustainable financing, including through the kind of improvements that the program seeks to make in terms of the public finance management. Now, by making this connection, I think the program can very much support the goal that we all have of investing more in social protection, because as we know, the financing gap is one of the constraints that really holds back the universality and the comprehensiveness of social protection systems in many countries. So by having more investments, I think we can go a big step forward, but also by bringing these different ministries together, we also can really be sure that the investments are made in ways that are aligned with the hard-won kind of international social security standards, you know, ensuring that the social protection systems are universal in reach, that they are comprehensive, that they respond to women's specific constraints, that they're gender responsive in the way that the Honourable Minister was talking about. So in many ways, I think, you know, it can not only increase and ensure more investments, but also better investments, investments of quality that can enhance the sustainability, comprehensiveness and reach of the social protection systems, so that they are really adapted to the challenges that countries are facing today, obviously huge challenges in the context of the COVID crisis, but also look ahead to future possible challenges. The program will also support the EU delegations that are working in countries with social protection expertise, so that the EU's budget support can also in a way be used as a catalyzer to develop national capacities, so that countries can also increase domestic resource mobilization. So I think that's really one important element. Secondly, I think the program also brings in and can offer the joint expertise of the ILO, of UNICEF, and the Global Coalition for Social Protection Floors. So in this way, again, it's a joined up program, providing expertise and knowledge, advisory services, evidence generation, policy-oriented research, so that we can really make sure that all the best of the available experience and knowledge is put in the hands of those who are implementing the program and the policy decision makers, who will be the ones who really have to make the needle move on the ground. So bringing that expertise, joined up expertise together, I think will be a really important step. And we also know that already support is also enabling the EU delegations that are in several of the countries to really strengthen the social protection support that they provide. And we know that this is happening in countries like Cambodia, Ethiopia. Large interventions are already being discussed. So that's also, I think, significant. And thirdly, I think it's also really important, and this program really supports what I think is a 21st century challenge, which is to really extend social protection to workers in the informal economy. This is a challenge that countries are facing everywhere, in the developing world, in different ways, also in the developed world, where non-standard work is increasing. So extending coverage to the informal economy, I think, will be really, really important. And it can have a triple dividend. It can formalize labor, so that's really important in itself, and formalize enterprises. It can also extend social protection, thereby enhancing the universality of the reach of social protection systems. But also it can really enhance resource mobilization by extending the sort of tax base. So we get three kind of really important achievements for, you know, through this kind of measures that can extend protection to the informal economy. And finally, I won't say much about this last point also, because I know I'm probably out of time, but the other goal is really to try and democratize the debate on financing of social protection. And that's really, really important at both global as well as national levels, so that decisions are not made behind closed doors, and that the partners, the social partners, civil society is involved in terms of making the decisions. And we know that this is already happening in the way in which the program is being designed. And that's really important, both because of the democratic values are important in themselves, but also because it really brings the best knowledge to design the program, so that there's greater ownership of the programs, and also so that it can really enable their implementation and sustainability with that kind of ownership that is being brought to it. And I hope that Bart will say more about that from the Global Coalition in terms of the need for these kind of, how these participatory approaches can enhance program effectiveness. Thank you very much, Valerie. I'll stop here.
Thank you so much, Shara. And I will now turn to Natalia Winter-Rossi, Associate Director and Chief of Social Policy, UNICEF. So Natalia, in addition to its impact on health, COVID-19 has also jeopardized progresses in poverty eradication, as Mrs. Jaiger mentioned previously, the reduction of vulnerability, inequality. Children in particular have been extremely affected. So according to you, how this EC DEVCO program can make social protection systems more sustainable, inclusive, and shock responsive? Over to you, Natalia.
Many thanks, Valerie, and thank you for the invitation. Let me start by thanking EC DEVCO for its leadership and commitment in supporting this flagship program. I think it's a program that it's critical to strengthen social protection systems while also ensuring that these are inclusive, risk-informed, and financially sustainable, as you mentioned, Valerie. And of course, it's an honor to be able to work together with our key partners such as ILO, the Global Coalition, our committed country offices and teams, and government counterparts, which I know are already working very closely to effectively implement this initiative. I'm delighted to be sharing this panel with honorable representatives from Ecuador, Paraguay, and Nepal. I think this program definitely embodies our joint priorities for social protection and our perspective on some of the key elements that we need to strengthen in the current context. As you rightfully say, the crisis has disrupted billions of lives and livelihoods and threatens to unfortunately reverse many years of important progress, including in terms of child poverty. Our latest projections developed together with Save the Children show that we may see an additional 142 million children living in extreme poverty by the end of the year. And this is, of course, on top of many significant impacts on children's well-being due to school closures, disruption of health services, redirection of key services and resources to other essential services, as well as impact on mental health and violence. We know that social protection has been and continues to be a critical pillar of the response. And we've been all working, I think, very closely with governments and across the UN family to provide support based on our experience and our comparative advantage. I think that we all appreciate and commend the response that many governments have taken, especially in a context of existent and in many cases limited fiscal space. But we also know that the crisis has highlighted many gaps in social protection systems in terms of coverage, in terms of adequacy, as well as also key aspects of the social protection system, such as the coverage of the informal sector or the care sector, which need to be effectively addressed as we move forward. We're asking governments to do more, to do better. And I think that this program is definitely lead us to have a comprehensive support to governments to precisely help them to do more and better around social protection systems, to use the current challenge as an opportunity to contribute to an effective immediate emergency response, but even more crucial, to an inclusive recovery for every child and their families. And if you allow me, I would like to maybe highlight a couple of key components of this program that represent, from our perspective, critical game changers. So one is, I think, the one mentioned by Shara around the need to expand social protection while ensuring financial sustainability. And this is a critical priority of our work, leveraging expertise in public finance, but of course, enhancing the support, which is more relevant than ever, to ensure at a minimum that our social investments, including in social protection, are protected, enhancing efficiency in budget management, identifying new financing options. And this program represents and provides that critical catalyst to move forward more sustainable systems, helping governments to translate political commitments into well-established national programs. And as we've heard from our colleague in Paraguay, the program is starting to support the implementation of VAMOS and to diagnose budget efficiency, identify coverage and financing gaps, propose options also to create additional fiscal space for social protection expansion with a special attention to vulnerable groups such as people and children with disability. Second big innovation and game changer, I think, is the continued commitment to investments in system strengthening. And I think, again, this is a key reminder that even in crisis context, we should not forget the importance of building and strengthening systems. And for example, in the case of Burkina Faso, the program seeking to provide technical support to an integrated package of different services and different parts of social protection, such as universal insurance schemes, as well as other key social services and health services for children and their mothers. A third key element, I think, is the very explicit commitment to inclusion and to really effectively integrate the most vulnerable, like children, women and girls, people with disability, those in the informal economy, to really be part of the poverty reduction and social protection strategy. I think we all are aware that accelerating results around SDG 1 requires this specific focus aligned with our commitment to universality. And in countries such as Senegal, for example, the program is actively helping to progressively achieve a gender and disability inclusive or sensitive universal coverage, and really trying to build and adopting a life cycle approach, as well as identifying mechanisms towards a unified budgetary framework for adequate, sustainable, and gender-sensitive financing. I think this is very, very critical to really translate commitments around gender equality into action.
Thank you, Natalia. If you could wrap up, please, because you're already over the 5 minutes. Thank you.
The last point was around the shock responsive angle that you mentioned, Valerie, and how much this program is also trying to making sure that we translate good programming into risk-informed programming. And I'm sure the colleague from Nepal wanted to share also the cross linkages that we're doing with disaster risk management. I think in general, we're very excited to be part of this process to further critical support to countries. As you said, it's a timely and relevant program. And definitely looking forward to see how this program evolves and the critical results that we can able to contribute across regions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Natalia. And last but not least, we will now hear from Bart Verstraeten, the Political Secretary of WSM. So Bart, this EC-DEFCO program introduces an innovative collaborative approach, as already Shara and to some extent Natalia have mentioned, by bringing different partners together. Of course, the EU, the ILO, UNICEF, the Global Coalition, the Ministries of Labor, Social Welfare, Finance, Health, workers and employers organizations, and the civil society. So how do you think that this unique setup can make a difference for beneficiary countries, trade unions, civil society organizations? And how do you see the role of the Global Coalition in general and WSM in particular? And Bart, you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Valerie. I hope all colleagues hear me clear and fine. And it's also for me an honor to be on this panel together with all of you representatives of our co-implementing agencies, as well as, of course, the representatives of the different countries who made it to our panel today to already pay testimony to the work that is being done since October 2019. And I think indeed this is a unique setup, a first actually for most of us around the table. And I hope that also in a few years we can be reporting back to this audience and many more people and organizations on the way forward, because we really believe as Global Coalition for Social Protection Floors that this could be a new collaborative way forward in realizing universal social protection. And I think I'd like to make 3 points. Let me start by saying something about the Global Coalition for Social Protection Floors, in short, GCSPF. And do apologize for always inventing these long names for civil society coalitions and difficult abbreviations. But in any case, the GCSPF, or the Global Coalition, is today a large coalition of about 100 different civil society organizations and trade unions around the world, pleading for universal human rights-based social protection in line with ILO Recommendation 202 on national social protection floors and ILO Convention 102 on minimum standards for social security. And I think the reference to these international standards is very key to us because everyone has the right to social protection. Many of my predecessors on the panel have already said so. And we, as civil society, want to make sure that we make this a reality at least by 2030 as prescribed by the Agenda 2030, and that we leave, of course, no one behind. And that's where we also come in. This is one of our added values because the coalition today brings together a whole range of different organizations, civil society, social movements, NGOs, think tanks, trade union organizations, and all have their own specific expertise when it comes to social protection. Different organizations organize different groups and different communities, working people in the informal economy, people in precarious employment, elderly people, women and children, people with disabilities, etc. Some organizations are very active in local communities and organize social protection services for those people who are left behind today. Still others are very active in research and advocacy, some at national, some at regional, some at international, or at all these levels. Bringing together already that expertise in one coalition gives us a lever to indeed contribute and build national, comprehensive, and largely supported social protection policy. Second point is, and starting from indeed that expertise within the coalition, this is indeed the added value we want to bring to this very specific global action that we are co-implementing with the ILO, UNICEF, and the European Union. We are committed to bringing national civil society organizations and trade unions together and to foster closer cooperation between them and to strengthen their capacity so that they can meaningfully and structurally engage with the other stakeholders in the program. In the first place, national authorities, but also the international organizations, ILO, UNICEF, and the European Union involved. Of course, we cannot be active in the 8 intervention countries. We had to make a choice, taking into account the resources available for the global coalition, taking into account also our presence and our capacities in the different countries where we work. And so 3 organizations have offered to indeed lead this effort in those 4 countries. So in Cambodia, Oxfam takes the role of coordinating organization. In Uganda, HelpAge International will do so. And finally, in Nepal and Senegal, WSM leads that effort. But when I say we lead or we coordinate, we are not the only organizations involved. We are the organizations, Oxfam, HelpAge International, and WSM, making sure that other stakeholders in the country, civil society, trade unions can come together and work closer together. And we make sure that different organizations representing different constituencies do indeed find themselves to be involved in an inclusive and cooperative process, making sure that they can define together what the priorities should be in building stronger and better social protection policies. Today in Cambodia, 19 different organizations have already committed to the process. In Nepal, we have 16 organizations. In Senegal, 20, and in Uganda, finally, already 25. Ms. Geiger and Ms. Razavi have already indicated what the added value is of involving civil society and trade unions. Indeed, we can generate broad support for policies and reforms. We can ensure that indeed the policies are driven by national priorities. And we also ensure that indeed social protection policies respond to the needs of all these different people across their life cycle. So in terms of the social contract, we are an essential party to that contract.
Thank you, Bart. I think you are over the 5 minutes. Do you have a final word and then?
Yes. If I may indeed, a final word from our side, we do indeed believe that we can gain a lot from this unique setup. We have the institutional, normative, and technical capacities of ILO, UNICEF, and the European Union. Natalia and Shara have already referred to that. We have the specific value that the Global Coalition brings in, mobilizing and empowering people and communities. And we believe that this is a prime example of a revitalized global partnership, as is called for in SDG 17. So together, yes, we can make SDG 1.3 or universal social protection a reality for all by working together. We will not only build back better, we will also build back stronger. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bart, for these final words. And all the energy and inspiration that you shared with us. So thanks a lot to all the panelists that have provided an overview of a number of country situations and also an overview of the EC-DEVCO program on improving synergies between social protection and public finance management that have shown that this program is relevant and timely, that it is not business as usual, but that it will ensure that decision makers on social protection policy and financing and the trade unions and civil society can really work together to make the right to social security a reality for all. So this launch event and of course the flagship EC-DEVCO program would not have been made possible without the hard work of all those behind the scene, especially my colleague Celine, who is on this panel, and all the team in EC-DEVCO, in UNICEF, and the rest of the team in the ILO and the Global Coalition, both in New York, in Geneva, in Brussels, and in the 18 countries that we have been, where the EC program will be implemented. So a huge thanks to all of them. So it's time now for us to give the floor back to Dorte for the next part of this program. Thank you.
Hello, Valerie. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the handover. Hello again to everybody. Good afternoon, good morning. Yes, we wanted to present in the remaining minutes a little bit the bigger picture beyond the thematic program. We just heard the discussion on, so there will be a second part. You're welcomed here to part 2, which is named COVID Response and the Way Forward, always referring to social protection. So I would hand over right now to my colleague Jürgen Hohmann, who will cover the first part, the COVID response and kind of stock taking, what the European Commission, DEVCO, is doing on social protection. Please, Jürgen.
Yeah, thank you very much. So my name is Jürgen Hohmann, and I'm part of that social protection team in DG DEVCO, the unit on migration and employment. We have a presentation which hopefully we can share with you. We will see that in a minute. I will take this moment to add one partner that has left out by Valerie so far. These are our EU member states, and our EU member states are the supporting ones which support all our activities of the Commission in development cooperation. They endorse this, they are part of it. We have them here in this project in the governance structure. We had a previous program on social protection system strengthening together with the OECD, Finland and Germany, which have also built to develop this program, where we have we started the design already in 2017. So now the presentation is ready. Just the next slide, please. What we have in COVID-19, from COVID-19, we have the advantage of regular tracking on what's going on COVID-19 responses and implementation measures in different countries. There are general overviews, one of the IMF, more specifically are those on social protection by our implementing partners, ILO and UNICEF, and also by the World Bank. So the next one, you can see that a dashboard overview very well developed by the ILO, where we can also look into how the support is given by function or by the different type of programming. I have an echo now. I hope you don't have that with you. World Bank, which from Ugo Gentilini, this is a more internal support to our scenery, gives a weekly update, and we have received that for half a year. And UNICEF, which has developed an overview of the dedicated UNICEF support to it. Next one, please. Henriette Geiger, in her introductory speech, talked about our so far 600 million program support on social protection as a direct support from the EU. And how that is done, I have given here three examples. They show that we work quite differently in each of the countries. So in Iraq, for example, totally new measures were decided as a response of 90 million euro to support the whole system strengthening with an implementation on social protection systems development. And we are proud that this will also be co-implemented by the partners UNICEF, ILO, and that time together with the World Food Programme. In Haiti, it was more a topping up of the sector reform performance contract, which is one type of sector budget support, where to the already 120 million, another 37 million was given and granted, and this was directly put into the treasury. And there, one specific social protection measure is to improve the electronic payment platform in Haiti. In Tanzania, another example of a reallocation from a project on economic and fiscal policy, which now has redirected to benefit social sectors, health and basket funding, and the productive social safety net with a vertical temporary expansion, and that paid through CEDA, so through a member state agency. Next one, please. From the program, I can be very quick that we have this call for concept notes. In addition to that, what we heard already from Ecuador and Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, there was support specifically on workers in the tourism sector, and in Nigeria, the support is given to towards the inclusion of the informal economy workers into the COVID-19 measures. That all was on demand, and 10 countries, as you have already heard, were selected. Socio Plus, another global program which we are running, which is a peer-to-peer support from in the area of social protection and employment, and on demand of countries, they now give distance support to the institutions and ministries in partner countries, and that works quite well, similar to all other technical advices given on virtually on distance. The next one, please. So on coordination, nobody can work alone. We all know that we are closely working within the Commission together with other services of the Commission, ECHO on humanitarian development, NEAR in the neighborhood countries and employment. At the EU level, we have a regularly exchange with the EU member states agency, which is co-led by one EU member states, currently Ireland and DG DEFCO. And in the international level, the most important coordination mechanism is and remains the Social Protection Interagency Cooperation Board, SPIAC-B. Next one. So when it comes to the special EU COVID-19 response to social protection, here you can find in the links the main documents and main decisions. So the Team Europe response to COVID-19 has pledged a total of 38 billion in support of COVID-19, of which 2/3 is given to the area of social and economic consequences. And of this one, currently the half is spent for on this issue in the area of social and economic consequences. So social protection itself may receive around 10 to 20%. On the joint communication, the second one here, we get information that social protection is meant in both areas for health and for social and economic repercussions. That means also health insurance is considered as a social protection support of the health sector. And the others will just give you an overview on that, what the EU is doing in COVID-19 support. To my last slide, and the next one is an overview on what are we doing. We are currently having programs in roughly 45 countries. 700 million are given support in terms of budget support. On programs approaches is more than that, is a billion in 18 different countries. And the two global programs, as I have just mentioned, the one on social protection and PFM and Socio Plus, which we are currently running in the area of social protection. COVID-19 responses are given by all of them. These are 18 countries plus our 10 countries that receiving support. So that is what I wanted to give you concerning the overview and looking back and to the present. Now I hand over to my colleague Dörte, who will look into the future.
Thank you very much, Jürgen. So yes, looking into the future, which is an immediate future with a new programming exercise. This was already mentioned beforehand. So we have a new budget 2021 until 2027, 7 years. You understood as well that some things are still under negotiation. Can I see the slides, please? Thank you. Slide 8, I think. What was this one? Yes, okay, wonderful, okay. So we are at the very beginning of this new programming cycle, which is written there in green. So for the new programming cycle, what is important to understand, of course, for the time being, and we have some delegations here on the call as well, they're all invited right now to do their programming documents, right? So what could be done in the next 7 years? It goes without saying that, of course, the overarching principle still remains those papers we all know, the 2030 Agenda, the Sustainable Development Goals, the Paris Agreement on aid effectiveness, the Addis Ababa Action Agenda on Financing for Development, and so on and so forth. And of course, the new European Consensus on Development of 2017. Of course, one of our overarching goals remains eradicating poverty and tackling all inequalities. This will remain essential for people's ability to seize development opportunities. Having said this, it goes without saying as well that we have other emerging challenges which need to be tackled, and this is happening as well through our new financing instrument, NDICI. So we think about environmental issues, we talk about migration, and so on. So COVID-19, and this reflects this, I mean, with social protection, we are doing this already. We need to try to build back better to cope with recent setbacks on development progress with a decline in human development for the first time in 30 years. We might all know the recent publications. There have been very good things being published by UNDP, I think already in spring, by the World Bank as well, how this kind of crisis sets us back on the path of development, how it really puts into danger the SDG to be reached by 2030. For the first time, I understand as well the human development, since the HDI was invented as well, there are serious issues with having inverse development on reaching more SDGs. So possible growing importance of social protection against this background. We have seen this really, I mean, social protection, I would say after health is really the second on the agenda, which became really most important throughout the last months. I mean, all of us working on social protection as well might have noticed this as well, the extreme interest on what we are doing, which is very good. Next slide, please. Yes, this is just, I'm not reading through this. I just wanted to show you. Here you see this is a bit the Bible. This is our so-called 5-pillar model here on the new programming exercise. You see we have 5 pillars. which are kind of the leading lights for what we are doing in cooperation. We, EU, as a global actor. So the first column you see here is the Green Deal Alliance. So we are invited really to work around those 5 pillars in our cooperation for the next 7 years. Then the second one, you have the alliance basically about digital issues. So I'm not reading out everything. So the third column here is the Alliance for Sustainable Growth and Jobs, of course, remaining very important. Then the fourth pillar here is on migration partnerships, which I just mentioned as one of the main global challenges as well. And the first one, this is put here a little bit in red because human development is put underneath. This is governance, peace and security and human development. Of course, social protection can be counted under human development. That's why there's a red circle. Next, please. So this is a bit taken from the guidance we have been receiving over the last weeks, what has to feed into the new programming exercise, how our development cooperation in the European Union should look like over the next 7 years. I will be quite quick on this, but there are some keywords. And all of them, what does it mean for social protection? First keyword here is geographization. This has been mentioned here sometimes. So most of our money goes to so-called geographized programs, so country envelopes or regional envelopes. So this will be the biggest chunk of the money of the so-called NDICI or financial instruments we are working with. So most of the money will be given away or committed at the country level or regional level. This is the main chunk. So social protection will continue, and Jürgen just mentioned this, to play an important part in this geographized programs. We have roughly 30 programs at country level already. Then second tier, global challenges. This was already mentioned as well by Henriette, thematic. Right now we have this big thematic program, which was explained in the first part of the session here today. So this means we are still under discussion what should be under the so-called global challenges, so thematic envelopes, financial envelopes, apart from the geographized envelopes. Those are the ones of truly global nature. So the last point here, the last yellow point, non-programmable component for rapid response. This is relatively new as well. This is lessons learned from the ongoing budget. There were so many unforeseen things to be covered. So from the current pandemic, COVID-19, of course, not foreseeable. The big migration challenge we were facing in Europe as well. I mean, some environmental issues. So this is things which are not foreseeable. So we could think about in the future what role it plays for financing social protection features or programs as well. We are doing this right now. Jürgen just mentioned this. In the quick response, we were leveraging quite a lot of funds to respond through social protection for the socio-economic crisis. Next slide, please. So I think this was mentioned already as well, how we implement the aid for the next years. So all delegations normally are invited to come up with so-called Team Europe initiative, maximum 2 normally. Apart from this, each country envelope and the TEIs, the Team Europe initiatives, are part of this national programming. They should have a maximum of 3 key sectors. And of course, underneath we can have subsectors, so it's a bit complicated. Voila. So the issue is that we are already doing this. We have right now in the current programming phase, we have 3 key sectors normally, and we continue doing this. So no dramatic change. And those TEIs, the Team Europe initiatives, should be implemented in them. We should be part of them. Next one is interesting as well, and Henriette mentions this as well. We have spending targets. Actually, it was still the slide before. Sorry, it was the last point I was just mentioning of the previous slide. Spending targets for human development and social inclusion. So a big chunk you see here, this is the key message, should go to human development. And here, social protection is part of it. Of course, a lot of human development will still go to education, and this is a key priority of our commissioner. Next slide, please. Yes, guiding principle for fragile countries. So this is the extra point in the programming. There will be an assessment of the fragile countries. And this is interesting for us. Why? Because often social protection is a key sector for fragile countries when it comes to linking humanitarian aid with development. You know, it's always like shelter, social protection, health, education, the most urgent needs. So we have to see what the role of social protection will be in there. Next one is highly technical. I just mentioned it here. We have so-called European Fund for Sustainable Development, EFSD+. So this is the entry point to use the already mentioned innovative financing instruments. I think Ashar from UNICEF was mentioning there. We always name it, but I think we need to advance on the innovative financing instruments to see how we can use this for social protection. We need to have interesting entry points for the private industry in order to go ahead. Last point here, EU cooperation should be used more systematically as a catalyst to support domestic revenue mobilization. Already mentioned this, and we do this currently with a thematic program already. DRM, domestic resource mobilization, is key. So we need to leverage with social protection support the public finance management. Next slide, please. Okay, almost getting to the end here. So I think this is important. So throughout the documents, we already seen from our colleagues, because colleagues from delegations, this is interesting for everybody. So they're submitting already to headquarters papers on what is planned in the next 7 years. So we have seen very good approaches on human development. The social protection is part of it. But this is an invitation to delegations here as well to think twice if the part on social protection could not be further leveraged and further reinforced. Then the second point here links social protection to public finance management and geographic programs. Yes, this is another invitation what could be done. I think the thematic program is a good example to follow, and we are here to help as well to our colleagues out there who want to further inquire on this approach. Then the last point here, think holistically, add social protection features to other relevant priority sectors. Yes, I just showed this slide on the 5 pillars with job creation, peace, stability, green digital, Green Deal digital, migration for human development impact. So think about the other side of the coin. If you think about like jobs and growth, very often there could be a social protection feature added. Or if you think about migration as well, there very often social protection schemes could be added, very important, even for the Green Deal. I mean, there are examples, and I will show you later on in the link collections that we have a whole collection of things which could be done. Next slide, please. Almost done. Yeah, this is just rough idea. This is an idea to give you an idea in which direction we go. When we think about contents we want to look into in social protection policies. And this was partially, it pretty much reflects the things which were mentioned throughout the whole event today. So we really want to address the informal sector stronger with social protection. Secondly, migration and forced displacement. The world is changing. This is something we really need to look into. Portable social protection schemes. So it's a huge number of people who are out there we need to support through social protection. Changing landscapes, urbanization, social protection. I think it was not mentioned here today. We have seen this throughout the COVID crisis. This huge population without jobs, working in the informal sector perfectly links to the first point here as well. Urbanization and innovative, flexible social protection schemes. We need to think about this. We need to discuss about this together. So then addressing different target groups and vulnerable situations. We all, of course, I don't need to go too much into detail. We all know it. Elderly people, migration, people with disabilities, and so on. Crisis situation is the nexus linking humanitarian aid and cooperation, social protection, our SPA package. This is in the link collection as well. I mentioned this before. I hope the last slide.
We are already
last slide.
10 minutes over time.
Last slide. Thank you. Okay, this is what we want to do. Perhaps I just don't mention it. I just leave it in here. We all know it as well. So we need to communicate on what we are doing here, linking with budget support, and so on. Next slide, please. And I hope that's the link collection. Yes. So this is all for your background information, and we will share this presentation. This is all we can offer you when it comes to social protection, what we are doing in the European Commission in external cooperation. Thank you very much. I'd like to conclude here and perhaps to hand over to questions and answers if there are any. We have very little time left. So looking into the chat box, for what I've seen here is that a lot of information was already exchanged, which is very positive. Thank you very much for this. And are there specific questions? If you have more specific question, this is the time now to ask the question in the chat box, please. I've seen that there was some information shared already on Lebanon, I think on Nepal. We will share all the presentation for your information, but please let me know if there are questions, because I think we still have the speakers here. And I'd like to take the opportunity in the meantime as well to thank all the speakers for their interventions. I think it was extremely well, rich of information. Thank you so much, and that it all worked technically as well. And I'd like to thank as well all the implementers of the thematic program to undertaking this huge effort. So thanks a lot for that. There's a question on domestic resource mobilization, a remark I see. Somebody wants to say something on linking social protection and domestic resource mobilization? Or it's more of a statement I see. There's a question on strategies of the EU to support more CSOs and TU involved in social protection in future programs and national regional levels. Somebody wants to respond to this. I mean, I'm of course the European Commission, but somebody else from the European Commission wants to respond to this. And then there's a question on the Global Fund. Perhaps I start on the Global Fund. Jürgen, or you want to go for for civil society?
Yes, I can, for civil society. So what you have heard in the course of that event, that here we have started to systematically include the social protection floor, the Global Coalition for Social Protection floor, in such a global program. That hasn't been done before. That is the first time that we started that, and we really wanted to continue with having social protection programs at country level, at international level, always with a civil society partner where possible. The Global Coalition gives us a great opportunity for that, because they are spread across the world. They have good connections in the scenery, and we also invite others that have approached us to connect to the Global Coalition, because that is not a one institution network. It's a network across all CSO or many CSO that are interested in that. I think I can leave it here. We are really aware of that, and we can promise that we will continue on including the CSO.
Thank you very much, Jürgen. I will comment on the Global Fund. Of course, this might be my personal opinion here. So the Global Fund, thank you very much for this question, because we didn't really discuss this here today, right? And we didn't really mention it. So thank you very much for mentioning this. I do think like the fact that we had COVID, of course, put social protection very high on the political agenda. So it might be the perfect moment as well to to suggest this global fund as well. And as you know, we have it for education, we have it for health. So one might ask, why not to have it for social protection? So I understand we had this big event in September, I think October, run by the UN Special Representative on poverty and the French government as well, to suggest this as well. And I think it was great to have this kind of discussion, right? Because we need to discuss in the first place the mandate of this fund. We need to discuss what is the added value additional to the things we are already having, the groups we are already having, like, for example, USP 2030, like, for example, SPIAC-B. So it's good to discuss this, right? So if you're getting to this point, and I understand the discussion continues, which is good, we really have a solid concept. We're just invited, I think, by the UN again to fill in a questionnaire, like very specific one on the different points we already had discussed at this conference in October. So let's keep the ball rolling. Let's see where we are getting together. I think at the international level, of course, it would be good to speak with one voice politically. We have to discuss the financing issues here as well. So I leave it there. Are there any other questions?
There was one question why Ghana was not included. So Ghana, as all other partner countries, were invited, both at the level of the EU delegations to present a proposal for being one of the main partner countries of this program, but also Ghana, as any other countries, was able to submit a proposal for call for concepts note for the short-term support by the program. So this has not been materialized yet in Ghana, but this doesn't mean that in the future, by next call for concepts node, which will take place the next one probably in spring next year, that Ghana can submit another proposal and maybe supporting a partner country of this program. Yeah.
Okay, if there are no further questions for what I see, I would thanks to everybody making this event here possible, and thanks for your patience as well, because you're way over time. I will hand over to Melinda now, who will close the event. Thanks a lot, and please all stay safe.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dorte, and thank you to all our speakers for their very interesting and in-depth presentation. I would like just to once again repeat the fact that the recorded video will be available on the DigiDevco website, more precisely on the webpage of the event when you also registered. The video will be online in the upcoming days. We invite you to stay tuned as more virtual conferences are being organized for the upcoming weeks. And if you want to remain informed of the upcoming events, you can subscribe by sending an email to europaid-infopoint-conferences@ac.europa.eu. So this is the same email address from which you received the link to connect. So we look forward to seeing you again in our next events, and please stay safe and with a positive attitude. Thank you again to all of you, and goodbye.